hate this profile.
Are we just using the?
There we go. All right.
Okay.
Just had to adjust things. Slide to the right.
Okay, I'm just gonna make sure
All right. Folks, you're going to get moved very briefly, but it's okay. I know what I'm doing. I'm kind of a professional. Welcome to Composer Talk, where things don't work. Okay, never mind. Okay.
Oh, there's the camera.
Things work enough. We're going to turn that off now that we know we have audio. Sweet.
Right.
Welcome to Composer Talk. Week of, well, this is just May 23rd. And man, it feels good. We're both out of school.
Yeah.
You're done doing final exam
Yes,
stuff and
yes.
disappearing to home. Just a big old homebody.
Here I am in the flesh this week, my usual self. So
yeah, it's been nice though. I've gotten a lot done this summer. I mean,
I've been,
as you can see, I've been working my way through my to-do list. It's kind of nice. It's quite the to-do list. Everything from professional stuff to school stuff to video games. But
I've just been doing the summer job application process.
Yeah.
And fixing my car. And once that's done,
your car?
Oh, and I have there's some rusting out happening on the roadster panels, which
that's not bad.
It's pretty common. I mean it is if it spreads, because that's actually structurally important. So I just say, yeah. But you guys aren't interested in my car. You're interested in composition.
We hope.
So, news for this week.
All right.
So, first up on the docket, Matt Marks, composer and founding member of Alarm Will Sound, died this week at only 38 years old.
That's sad.
Yeah, it is. I wasn't really familiar with his music, although I do know Alarm Will Sound. But yeah, Matt Marks was a big influence in the new music world. Not only was he a member of Alarm Will Sound, but also one of the founders of New Music Gathering, which is a very prevalent new music conference that is actually being held in Boston, I think, like this weekend. So that's another thing. But yeah, R.I.P. We don't know how he died, but it was sudden and it's sad to lose somebody, especially at this young of an age.
It is. And then let's see here. We've got the 66th annual BMI Student Composer Award winners announced.
Yep.
All right. So congratulations to these folks. Let's see here. Where are they? There they are.
Yeah.
So we've got Catherine Ball, 26, studying at Columbia University.
Yes. Jonathan Snyder. Don't know how to pronounce that name.
Snyder would be that.
Snyder, who was awarded the first prize, the William Schumann Prize, for the most outstanding score in the competition. He's 26 years old and studies at Juilliard.
Then we have Saad Haddad, age 25, also at Columbia.
J.P. Redmond, who was awarded the Carlos Surinach Prize for being the youngest winner. He's only 18 years old and he studies at Juilliard.
We've got Matthew Skoltis, age 20, studying at Indiana.
Gabriella Smith, 26-year-old from Princeton.
Ari Sussman from New England Conservatory of Music, age 24.
Amy Thompson, she studies at McGill University, Canadian University, I think.
Yeah, I think that is. Yeah. And then Miles Walter, 23, studying at Yale.
Yes.
So congratulations to those folks.
And also we should mention Avik Sarkar won an honorable mention. I don't think he's eligible for the competition proper because he's a high school student, but he's a 17 years old, studies with the composer Ala Cohen.
In Boston.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So you can go to the BMI Foundation website and you can listen to all of these pieces. They're up on the through SoundCloud, through the BMI's page. So I encourage you to do that. Up and coming, good to get to know the up and coming stars in our field.
Well, and it's good. I like the BMI thing. I like ASCAP more, but I guess to each their own.
Next on our list, the Seattle Symphony recently premiered a piece called "Stay Elevated." Now, what's interesting about this piece is that it's composed collaboratively by a group of homeless youth. Um, the Seattle Symphony has been trying to do a lot of outreach recently,
That's about
and
as outreach as it
that
gets.
it is, and the composer in residence there, whose name escapes me at the but she started a program at a local homeless youth shelter in Seattle, where she would go in and essentially get these kids together, and take their musical ideas. Kids aren't necessarily musically trained. They're giving ideas as far as instrumentation, hmm, instrumentation, melodies, and rhythms, and basically all put them together. And with the help of people from Seattle Symphony, organized it into a piece. That was performed. Um, so yeah, this was just recently premiered. It's a good thing. I think we can all agree.
I think it's an
Oh,
interesting concept. I
hmm,
like collaborative projects, and I think
yeah.
that this level of collaboration is,
Hmm.
I think it's interesting. I wouldn't have been brave enough to do it myself, but I'm glad that someone did.
Well, I think that brings up a good point. Not it's interesting both in the fact that it's outreach to the underprivileged people in the Seattle area, but also something we as composers don't do a lot, collaborating on a piece. Um, which is something that, I mean, that's I feel that something I kind of miss in my career as a composer, as opposed to things I've done in the past with jazz and with rock music, where it tends to be the process of putting a piece together tends to be very collaborative. Um,
Well,
and
it can be collaborative.
mhm,
Like the most common way is to do like suites of miniatures,
yeah.
and that's something that I think we should do again. I mean, I still want my service bell piece to be one of four in a micro suite. I think that'd be
Mhm.
really cool. But people won't write service bell music.
Well, you could do like a service bell one, and then you could do like a church bell one, and then a I don't know, other kinds of bells, handbells.
You're fired. Um, so Bang on a Can marathon was on May 5th, not May 15th,
13th.
May 13th.
Hmm.
Video stream will be
Yeah.
available until May
This
27th.
this is something that happened about a week ago, and we didn't really cover, so we wanted to kind of mention it, especially since you can still listen to that video.
Right, and I do recommend it. Bang on a
Hmm.
Can is just wonderful. I haven't listened to this yet, but I tend to enjoy their stuff.
Yeah.
It's really fun. It's actually so our librarian.
Hmm.
This is just a funny side story. Matt Stock, he's a good friend of mine. He likes sending me stuff. He likes because he
Hmm.
likes my music. He likes what I do. And he was describing because he was just at a librarian conference, and he's not the only music librarian. And so at this conference, there was a woman there who wrote a piece, and he was trying to describe it. He's like, "Yeah, he's like it's kind of like what you and your fellow composers do, but it's not quite on the level of what you've been doing lately. It's like bang on a can, but like they're not quite as random as you." And I was just saying, they're like, I was just mentioning the same sentence as bang on a can. I have arrived. But I
It's like,
thought that was pretty
but
funny.
yeah, I mean, banging it's great stuff. And the I looked at the list of pieces that were done, and of course there's stuff from Lang and Wolf and Gordon, like there always is, but
Right.
also from several other composers. So yeah, check it out. That stream's available on Facebook. If you go to Bang on a Can's Facebook page and then you click on videos, there's like two about 3.5 hour videos that cover the length of the concert.
Right.
So
I'll probably be trying to enjoy that over the next few
yeah, me
days.
too.
I can't enjoy it on the 27th though because I've got other plans that day.
Hmm.
But anyways, I'll be doing it probably in the next couple days instead.
Hmm.
So you've got some new music
Yes,
watch.
yes. So we have some new recordings, new premieres that have come out recently. One that I wanted to mention, the string quintet, Sybarite Five, has been kind of making waves in the new music world. They've been talked about on iCare If You Listen, on New Music Box. Actually, the bass player has been putting out several articles on New Music Box about the ensemble. They've just released their first album. It's called Outliers, and it's all new music, all contemporary composers. Silverlight 5 is a name that always kind of pops out at me because they were just here at OU this past semester. I don't think you didn't get the chance to go to that concert, did you?
No,
I
I was too
was
tired that day.
yeah. I was there. It was a really good concert. They're excellent musicians. They do a lot of stuff that's it's not necessarily in the same vein as Bang on a Can, but there's definitely some bleed over there with the influence of minimalism and with the influence of popular music and what they do. They actually did a Radiohead song on an arrangement of a Radiohead song on the concert. They're a really good ensemble, so I recommend you check them out. Their album Outliers is available on Bandcamp, so
Yeah, check that out. And then Robert Hunstein, An Economy of Means, available from New Focus Recordings on Bandcamp. It's a bunch of vibraphone music.
Vibraphone and piano too. I think there's two pieces on there. One is the title track, An Economy of Means, is a piece for solo vibraphone it actually uses a lot of preparation. There's a particularly cool.
How does one prepare a vibraphone?
I don't know. I'm gonna have to look into that. But there's a particularly cool section of the piece that it's several movements.
There's an instrument I don't know how to prepare. I feel offended.
There's a section that he makes it sound like steel drums, which is kind of cool. Neat music. This is again.
I know how you do that.
Again, more from New Focus. That bastion of new music that is putting out new music like every week now, which is great.
That's good.
But yeah, check that out. And for new premieres, this past week, Ensemble Mise N. I'm not exactly sure how it's pronounced, but it's MISE-EN.
I think that'd be Misen.
Misen?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's probably that. They're an ensemble based in New York, and they just recently had a concert where they premiered more than five, works by five composers, a couple Austrian composers and a couple Korean American composers. This was presented by the Austrian Cultural Forum of New York and took place over 2 nights. First, including works for solo instrument and electronics. That sound familiar? We talked about another concert in New York last week for Nina Young who did that, and the second is works for full ensemble. So this is a premiere, so it's not like you can just go listen to it, but you can check out the composers who are having their works done, and their names are, and I am sorry, I'm going to butcher some of these.
I'm just gonna let you do this too. I'm not gonna say
anything. You don't know how to speak Czech or whatever that.
And I'm good at pronunciation though.
Sungji Hong, Mirela Ivekvik, Peter Jacober, Seong A. Kim, Matthias Kranebitter, and Sojin Yoon. So
it was so bad.
I don't know. Bad. It's not Chinese. It's Korean. I don't know Korean. Anyway,
you can find it online.
If you want to actually look up these composers' names and actually have the correct spelling, you can go to the Austrian Cultural Forum of New York website, where they list the names of all these composers and have little blurbs on each concert.
I love listening to that. All right, so a discussion topic now. That's it for the news, and there's actually next to nothing happening in the tech world except there is one little bit. We've got. Let me pull it up here so I can actually pull the right facts. So there's a new plugin for Sibelius that it's interesting. It just came on my radar, and I wanted to talk about it because it's graphical MIDI. For those that don't know, MIDI, it tends to go 0 to 127, and it's scalar, and you can kind of do lines between them so that you have the gradation between like 120 and 121, so that can slide naturally, things like that. That's how you get things like pitch bend and a keyboard, things like that. And someone has taken this and they've turned it into a plugin for Sibelius, and that's something that I guess I'm a little worried about. Like, I think it's cool, but I'm a little worried about it, and here's why. Um, it is a good tool for like, okay, I know I want something to happen here, but I think the problem is it's not gonna be as accurate as people think. I mean, obviously, I don't really use Sibelius anymore, so I can't test this personally unless I reload Sibelius on my computer. Plus, I don't want to pay $25 for the plugin, but I would happily do it if they wanted to give me access to it. But basically, my the way you could use this is you could create kind of like an arc in your melody. So you could say, okay, I want this to rise up, then go down. You could, sit there and say, okay, I want some sustains. You do this, and it's just, I don't know. It's interesting because it kind of ties into what we were talking about
Hmm.
a couple weeks ago with the, using MIDI to compose, and I think this is a good middle ground.
I don't think this. I don't know that. Well, I don't think this is really what this is because it looks like what this is. Just looking at this here, what this is more for is for taking a Sibelius score and exporting it to a sequencer or a sound library,
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, this
like
is a
via
good
the
middle ground. Like
VST.
this
Yeah.
is
Hmm.
this is basically like
Hmm.
I guess you would call this a bridge.
Yeah.
And I think that if used like this,
Hmm.
like if this was on my radar whenever we talked about that, I would have considered this the solution because it's dangerous if you go too far and only compose
Hmm.
in MIDI. Because at that point you're really losing the personality, the touch, the ink, so to speak.
We talked about this 2 weeks
I
ago.
know.
I don't think you're right, but
I know.
I I
But
think I think I mean this
I
I
think
don't
this
know
is an
that I don't even
interesting
really
thing.
see it as a middle ground as much as it's something different. I mean this isn't a compositional tool.
I
This is
think
a
it can
tool
be.
that I I think it can be understood as a tool for realizing your composition. But I don't know that I'd consider it a compositional tool.
I
Any
think
more
you
than
could.
I
For
don't consider.
sketches. I see this as a good thing for creating sketches. Because you could, in theory,
Hmm.
be like, you know what? I don't know what the flute does right there, but I just need to hear something and it's going to be
Hmm.
scalar and going up. So you can just sit there and use your CC to just fly out an upward scale. It doesn't have to be accurate,
Yeah.
but just something to represent what's going to be
Hmm.
there. Because how often do you bring something in, for instance, to Dr. Lamb, and it's like, oh, you have to imagine a flute
Right.
scale upwards there.
Hmm.
I mean, yeah, he gets it, but whenever he just looks at the page, it's just kind of like there's nothing there.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
he has a point whenever he mentions that. And I think that something like this could potentially subvert some of that, but I would have to play with it, see how
Yeah,
accurate it
I would
is.
too because this. I mean that I think that's probably something that you could do in here, but the features it lists all have to do with changing note velocities and volumes and stuff like that.
Well,
Um,
but if it's used for that, you can use it for the
you
others
should be able to.
because
Yeah.
MIDI is
Right.
it's just translated. Because
Hmm.
basically the way MIDI works, you've got your pitch, your velocity, and length.
Right.
And then you've also got your ADSR in there, but I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
assuming that that's
Hmm.
separate within this. So I mean, you could use this for all that stuff, and I
Hmm.
think it would be really neat. Now, the only thing that is dangerous, and this is the thing that makes me skeptical, is how often are you composing, and you compose on a laptop, so you run
Right.
into this
Right.
probably a lot. How often do you wish that you had more bass in your laptop in the sound? So you'll
Oh.
maybe
Oh
boost the
yeah.
level of the basses a little bit
Hmm.
just to get the correct
I mean,
sound.
I don't use my laptop speakers to listen to it,
No,
but
even
still,
your pathetic little headphones.
even with a pair of headphones.
Well, because
Um,
you have crappy headphones, so I mean,
yeah.
it's going to sound crappy anyway. So I mean,
Hmm.
you've got to boost the bass to hear any of it.
Hmm.
So you boost it to where it sounds good for you, but you bring it upstairs to the studio at school, and it's just completely out of whack.
Well,
And
and
that's
that's
something that I can really foresee people going a little overboard with this. And that's something that does scare me a little bit, but I think that's one
yeah.
of those things of I kind of have to ignore that because how many people are actually
You
going to
have
abuse
and
that?
that's I mean mixing in general. That's something that if you're ever going to mix something, you have to understand that you never mix in headphones. Like I mean, I don't do much mixing, and even I know that you
Yeah,
don't mix in
exactly.
headphones. So
Like I'll compose in headphones. I don't mix in the
right.
headphones.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's
But
bad business.
the other thing about this is that this requires Sibelius 7.5 or higher. So if you're like me and haven't bothered upgrading to 7.5 and
Or
don't
eight.
really and don't or 8 and don't really care to do,
You should upgrade to eight.
um,
I'm just professionally speaking. You should upgrade to eight, but I understand why you haven't because you need Dorico.
Well, because I may switch at someone, and also because you have to actually pay to upgrade to 8. It's not
Well,
in,
yeah,
yeah.
and that's why I'm saying like you should do
And
that or Dorico, and honestly, you should just do
works.
Dorico.
7 honestly works fine for me.
You should just switch to
Um,
Dorico. It's better.
but
It's the promised land. It's that big
uh-huh,
green field across the train tracks from you
uh-huh,
while you're
uh-huh.
standing in the wasteland that is
The grass is
Sibelius.
always greener on the other side, as they say.
It is with Dorico,
At this point, I'm just gonna start using MuseScore.
See, and that's what's pathetic. Like, Sibelius, I mean, at this point, I will. There are some things that Sibelius does that MuseScore doesn't. This is
Well,
definitely
yeah,
sidetrack.
there's plenty.
But the problem is it worth it to deal with it? Because I mean, the licensing and authentication issues that are so pertinent in Sibelius, the second you use multiple machines, which is supposed to be a benefit of using Sibelius, by the way. But I mean, honestly, I use multiple machines easier on Dorico, and I have to remember a stupid little stick anytime I want to do it. But I'd rather do that.
A little dongly kind of thing,
Yeah,
yeah.
a little stick. It's very good. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've almost dropped it, but yeah, see, I've got my little
Such a
Dorico
cute little,
dongle.
such a cute little stick.
It's so little, isn't it? Like, it's ridiculous. The Steinberg one is so small. They've got an awesome like metallic.
At least we know you're not compensating with it.
Oh, there you go. Trust me, I know I'm not.
But
no, I think that's yeah. Either way, I think this is interesting. I think this could add some functionality to Sibelius. However, one of my biggest things with it is I think like I don't know when this was, but it's only been popping up recently, so I would suspect it hasn't been around for an incredible amount of time. With that, I'm just wondering in the back of my mind, why did somebody waste time doing this? Because Sibelius is losing people in droves.
well, you never know how things will work. Maybe Sibelius will make a comeback.
If people are leaving in
and
droves,
I think a lot of people.
And not just for Dorico, they're leaving back to
Yeah.
Finale. They're going to Dorico. They're just saying screw it and going to MuseScore.
Sibelius, though, I mean,
Some people are even using Lilypond now.
It still is quite prevalent, and I mean, if I were going to design a plugin, which is not really my area of expertise, so I probably wouldn't. But I probably wouldn't choose Sibelius as my platform for it because I'd be thinking ahead, like, you know, in 10 years, you know, is this really still the number one notation software? I don't think so.
I don't think it's going to survive much longer anyway.
But I don't know. It may be. Does Dorico have a feature like this already?
It's going to be native in Dorico too.
Which is why, like I'm saying, if somebody wants to do this and they know that Dorico is gonna create a native version, they're not gonna do it for Dorico because people are just gonna use the native plugin.
But plugins are a problem in Sibelius. They are so buggy. You can have two plugins that work perfectly fine but do not agree with each other.
Have you anyone listening ever tried to do string harmonic playback in Sibelius?
There's a plugin for that.
There is a plugin.
Yeah, it's horrible.
And it's awful. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, actually, I figured out what broke it for me. Eventually, this is actually really funny. You'd think that'd be some advanced plugin. Like, what plugin? Like, there's a lot of plugins people use, but off the top of your head, what plugin do you think caused the problem?
I don't know. Harp pedaling, not harp pedaling. I don't know. That's the one I use.
Better Title Pages plugin. That's how broken Sibelius.
Well, and it does need a better title page program. The title page stuff in
Sibelius the better one was awesome. I was able to just transfer it instantly. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
But I mean, I will say this. I mean, Dorico's page system is better, but the only problem is you can't import and export full pages. You can only do it by the flow. So I had to save my title page script as a flow, which it works. But still, just kind of like I'd rather.
I'm gonna rant for a minute about Sibelius and title pages and text pages in general.
I'll give you a minute before we move on.
You would think Sibelius obviously is not a word processing software. You know, it's not text editing. It's not what it's for. But you would think that given that scores tend to have text in them, my performance notes, you know, my dedication page, etc. You know.
Yeah, don't do that stuff for your thesis, by the way. In Sibelius.
Right. You would think that you would not have to fight with Sibelius to have a page of text. But that is not the case. you have to wrestle mightily. You have to get down and dirty with that program to write your performance notes page. You know,
It is ridiculous.
it's really silly.
Like, I don't know. It's ridiculous. Like, what I recommend to everyone is if you're not going to go move to Dorico and use the Flow system, which I recommend anyways, just use Microsoft Publisher and make a title page.
Make it and then
just copy and then just like merge the PDFs. There's free software online. I mean, not downloadable software, but like you upload the two files and then merge them into one. You can just do that.
And even if you're too lazy to do that, you just print off the one and then you print off the other and then you bind them together. You know.
Yeah, but if you're doing like.
But if you're sending it to somebody, then you don't do that.
But so enough about that. On to. Anyway, that's really the only tech related thing, and it's kind of a weird thing because I guess I'm just not sure what the person was thinking type thing, but I like the thought behind it.
It's a nice thing to have if you got Sibelius, and particularly if you use East West or Vienna sounds, and you want a little more high fidelity in how you can export the score that you've written out to that sound library.
Or even if you just want to realize it in something like Pro Tools and all that, and you don't want to have that, faked violin curve, things like that for the sound file. It's good for that stuff, but again, it's just kind of, I guess at this point, it's like, if this had been around 2 years ago, it would have been different.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the problem, is I think that this is who is a Sibelius diehard, who desperately wants to keep using Sibelius because he sees these features coming in Dorico, in this case, because Finale's not working on it. We know that. Finale's working on more ways to break their engraving system. That's all they ever do. But I don't know. I think it's interesting. I think it's kind of a shame because honestly, something like that would have been much more useful for other programs. Like honestly, it would have been more useful to do it for Finale. If I'm being honest, because I think Finale will continue to be prevalent just because there's so many schools that are bought into Finale for decades at a time. And Sibelius isn't as big in the academic market.
Institutional wheels turn slowly.
And they turn slowly, and so Sibelius is going to die soon. And a lot of institutions they just sat out on Sibelius, but they're switching from Finale to Dorico. So it's just like, I don't know. I think that this is kind of a waste of time on their part, I guess is the only thing I'd say, but more power to them. I mean, I'm a programmer myself. I make software, but I think it was a poor decision. Just like you mentioned, like you wouldn't have put your eggs into that basket.
I don't know if he makes money with it. Then
I guess,
then
but
he makes
with
money.
the amount of time that you put in, did you really make money?
It depends. We'd have to see his little business sheet, which I don't really have an interest in probing into his business's finances. I don't really care. Yeah, I hope he does well. But anyway,
so moving on into non-news related stuff. Well, I mean, it can be news related depending on who you ask. Yeah, but the rise of the video game composer. We've been staying on this topic for like almost 2 months.
Yeah, like 3 weeks.
No, what was this article?
like a month because we missed
let me find out.
April
3rd.
Oh, wow.
I told you it's been like 2 months.
Anyway, yeah.
All right, so yeah, because that's a Tuesday, so it has been legitimately 2 months of composer. Wow, okay.
Almost like 2, yeah.
Yeah, just about 2. Man, that's ridiculous. Okay, so it's been a full 8 composer talk. We can say that. So, this was something posted on the Dorico blog. The rise of the video game composer, and it's something that, I mean, you don't have to even play video games to know that video game composers they're a force to be reckoned with. I mean, you've got the likes of people like Martin O'Donnell, you've got Salvatore, you've got, let's see here, I think Alasi is still doing something. I don't know. There's a lot of big names that are writing video game scores, and there's lots of very memorable video game scores of recent years. I mean, you've got the Legend of Zelda series from Koji Kondo, which is always brilliant beyond belief. You've got things like, the Star Fox 64 soundtrack from back in the day. That's very memorable. You've got things like the World of Warcraft soundtracks, which are continually top-notch, like symphonic orchestra level stuff. Like, oh, it's just brilliant. Like, I'd love to hear that in the halls. I mean, you've got, of course, the very famous Halo soundtrack with the Gregorian chant opening that everyone knows.
Oh,
Wrong key.
that's not. Yeah,
Wrong key. It's
I'm
an
just
E.
chanting.
It's an E, Dorian. But you get the idea. I mean, it's very prevalent. It's everywhere, and I guess it's just this is becoming a bigger and bigger thing because all video games need soundtracks,
Yeah.
and no video game developers settle for just a MIDI track anymore. They are going for a symphonic track.
Well, unless it's a deliberately like old school game like Undertale or something like that.
Yeah, and even
Yeah.
then, once it passes a certain point, just for usability, they commission a soundtrack.
Mhm.
I mean,
Well,
it's just a
I
thing.
mean, Undertale's like the whole thing's done by the one dude. But like, I
Yeah,
see
no,
your point.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I mean, like once it expands, once
unless
they get out to 3 or 4
unless
people,
they're going
yeah.
for a deliberately old school aesthetic where you have the 8-bit soundtrack, then yeah, they want to go all out.
Well, because you need to.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of like film scores. I mean, a good film score or a bad film score can make or break a film.
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of cases, for video games, it's the same.
If you ever want a good laugh, go and watch Star Wars scenes without John Williams.
There are. I mean, most of the scenes are fine, but the ones he's talking about, there are some scenes that just don't work.
The last scene of A New Hope, the big ceremony where they give him the medals. Yeah, that's hilarious without John Williams music.
No, what's great is the escape from the Death Star. The escape from the Death Star without music, because that big pull, like once Obi-Wan dies. Spoilers. But so once Obi-Wan does, I mean, you have the big opera and strings that and it's just like it's big, beautiful moment, and you're like without it, it's just like awkward because you just see Luke shooting. It's just like pew, 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 this is awkward. Pew, pew, pew. This is officially reached awkward. That or I don't know. There's lots of really interesting things, but so I mean. I guess the rise of the video game composer, it's very prevalent and it's very new because, I mean, until about 2001-ish, there was no such thing as a full video game composer. You commissioned a composer to write your video game track. But now the studio composer is a big thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, the ivory tower, so to speak, and people used to refer to Martin O'Donnell's office, which unfortunately doesn't have anymore because he was wrongfully fired, but he had the ivory tower at Bungie Gaming because he just had this room in which he composed the music, tested the games alongside the music, and just worked side by side with it. And it does take a special mindset because kind of like with film, how you have to be kind of a film buff and all that.
Yeah.
For video game music, I mean, like Jake could be a terrible video game music composer.
Yeah,
he doesn't know how video games work.
I'm not a gamer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a thing. Whereas someone like me would have a better shot because I know the field, I know the games, I know how they work, I know what I would want to work, things like that. So I mean, I don't know. Like, what do you think about the rise of video game composer? How prevalent is this? Is this article wrong?
No, I mean, I think as long as video games are a thing, which I don't think they're going away anytime soon. To me, it's like film music, and I think that we'll see more. I don't know, more recognition for these composers in the academic or the mainstream concert music world as video games become more accepted as an art form. Because I do think that video games are a form of art, but for a long time, a lot of people didn't think that. A lot of people still don't think that. It's like video games, they're just entertainment. It's mindless, sitting there with your thumbs and going pew pew pew. And like I said, I'm not a big gamer.
To be fair, that's all Asteroids is.
That's some games are like that, but there's a lot of music that also has no like musically interesting content.
BT dubs. I still have the high score for Asteroids at an arcade in Springfield, Missouri. And it makes me really happy to say that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I still have one of the high scores for that.
But yeah, like even as I'm not a gamer. I've played a few games. It's not like I've never played video games before, but like it's very much not my world. But I recognize it as a legitimate art form, and I feel that as video games are more widely recognized as an art form, They will also their composers will get more recognition. Same as film composition. I mean, I think there is a long time when film composers kind of thought of as though they're the second class citizens, and
Well,
there are
for a
still some
while,
people who think that way.
no, actually, for a while, film composition, you didn't have a film composer. You had a composer that you commissioned to write for the film.
Right. Hmm.
And it was kind of like that for video games for a while. And so I
Yeah.
think I think we're kind of in the prime for it, so to speak. Because I mean, for instance, a AAA title, which for those that don't know, basically means it's a blockbuster game.
Hmm.
Something like the World of Warcraft series, the Call of Duty series for some reason. Things like
Fortnite. I don't know.
no, not
Everybody keeps
Fortnite.
talking about
That's not a AAA
Fortnite.
title. That's a
Um,
that'll be done here in a couple more months. Things like Legend of Zelda, things like that, like the true blockbuster games. They all have these great symphonic tracks that were written by oftentimes studio composers,
mhm.
which is something that again it's very new idea because I mean film studios never even reached that point. Film studios still haven't reached that point. I mean,
Mhm.
you don't have studio composers. I mean, the Marvel movies have different composers for every one.
Yeah,
I mean, but if they were video games, it'd be the same composer doing all of them.
I don't know. I'm not sure what the reason for that is. I mean, I think there's a certain prestige element. And we got so and so to score this movie. We got John Williams to score this movie. You know,
I don't
which
know. I mean, yeah, there is, but at the same point, I mean, at this point, why didn't Lucasfilm just bring in John Williams and hire him full time?
will
Would have
be,
been cheaper,
you know.
and John Williams would have had a steady paycheck.
Hmm. Well, does John Williams want? I mean, he's like 80, right? He doesn't. Maybe he doesn't want to get hired full time as something. Maybe he just wants to do what he wants to do.
Which, by the way, he is scoring episode 9.
That's it. Who do you know who scored Solo? Um,
I don't
I'm
know.
I'm not
I'll
sure.
find out this weekend
Are you going
probably.
to see it?
Yeah,
I don't even.
I can't go to the premiere
I don't.
tomorrow, but I'm gonna
I
go
don't
probably
know.
Saturday
I don't
night.
know if I'm gonna go see that. I sort of want to, but I sort of also.
It's a Star Wars movie. People were skeptical about Rogue One too, and Rogue One turned out phenomenal.
That's true.
I have faith. So,
I don't have faith, but I do have some hope. But
would you say it's a New Hope?
um, I really this is off topic.
This is.
I really don't feel that we need a Solo movie. Um,
Uh,
I wish they'd have picked, because honestly, Han Solo, to me, I don't really like the idea of recasting iconic characters. I didn't like it when they did it in Doctor Who with the first Doctor in this last Christmas special. Um, I really don't like it. Period. I thought what they did in Rogue One, where they had a couple characters who were in the movie a little bit, and they used CGI, was, I mean, it's not ideal, but it was respectful, I thought.
okay, I can
Whereas
agree with that.
whereas I don't know. I will withhold the judgment until I've seen it, but just the idea of having someone play Han Solo who's not Harrison Ford
That's
just
fair.
really doesn't sit well with me. And from what I've heard about the movie, basically what it does is just shows you all the noodle incidents they talk about in the movies. Like, I made the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs, or when he won the ship from Lando, and something there's something about stuff like that where I really feel it's more effective if that remains mysterious to an extent.
Some of it, yes, but some of it's
Um,
also something that someone like me, who has been
Yeah.
loving these movies since I was 3 years old,
Hmm.
I love the idea of seeing that.
Yeah,
So do not
and
ruin this for me.
And I get that
Go
too.
away.
So,
Um,
hey, I'm not gonna
anyways.
go away. This is my show too. I'll probably see it at
Yeah.
at some point here at least. But this is all
Yeah,
off.
that
topic.
was off topic. So back to the
Um,
topic of video games. I mean, it is interesting that video games have kind of beat films to the punch of having the studio composer. Now, granted, not all video game studios have their studio composer,
Mhm.
and part of that is, I think, because the smaller ones can't quite afford it, type
Mhm.
thing. So they
Yeah.
have to commission it out to like first and second time people.
Mhm.
But at the same time, if like I don't know, like I mean, I feel if Blizzard Entertainment has their own team of composers, I mean, why doesn't 20th Century Fox have their own on-staff composers that can sit there and
Hmm.
whip up a good score for just about anything?
Well, I mean, think about how Hollywood works in general. I mean, what I mean for a movie, you don't really you don't most studios don't have on staff actors. They don't have on staff directors. They hire these people for each film, and I think
That's true.
I think in the film industry, I mean, there's a desire to make kind of every film has to be different, and every film has to have a score and have a directing style and all these things that fits what that movie does. And studios, I don't know, Blizzard, for example, their main thing, from what I understand, is World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
If I'm not good. Whereas something like 20th Century Fox they don't really have a franchise property. They have a bunch of different movies and styles of films that they put out. So to me, it kind of makes sense that if you
Well, but
have a
something like
franchise
Blizzard, for instance, I
property.
mean, they have
Hmm.
Warcraft, they have StarCraft, they
Hmm.
have Diablo, they had a bunch of titles
Yeah.
beforehand, but I mean, they've got several different ones, and
Hmm.
it's the same team of composers.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
I don't
mean,
know.
I don't know. I do think I don't necessarily think that we can say that video games are ahead in this way as much as the industry has just progressed differently.
I guess I
I
guess
don't know
that's
that I don't know
true.
that it's a matter of progress. And I honestly don't see film going in that direction anytime soon, any more than I see studios hiring like a director full time to direct a bunch of their movies. I do think that part of it's a prestige thing. I do think that part of it is, well, we got so and so to direct this movie, we got so and so to score this movie, we got so and so to act in this movie, um,
Right.
and that as somebody who's not as into the gaming world, I don't really know as much how it works in that way. But I am pretty familiar with film and stuff like that. So I do think that those are at least a couple of the factors.
And I can agree
Um,
with that, but also that sticker was on there. Probably shouldn't have removed that. But
yeah,
so I guess my question is, I mean, the video game composer, do you think that it's a good thing that we have these studio composers? I mean, that's a solid job. I
yeah,
mean, Marty O'Donnell had the same job for 12 years,
hmm,
and he was paid very handsomely
yeah,
to do
yeah,
what he loved. And what he loved was writing video game music. And
hmm,
yeah, part of that was he had to take part in like the beta testing and things like that. And he had to test things early on, even like the internal testing, and he had to sit through a lot of boring meetings. But at the end of the day,
hmm,
your primary job is being a composer. So I
yeah.
mean,
I think it's great if you can get the job.
if you can get the
But
job, that being
I
the
mean we're
key
talking
thing.
we're not
Yeah.
I mean we're talking about a handful of select composers who get these
Right, because
positions.
there's only
Yeah.
about 10 major game
Mhm.
studios that would have a well paid permanent
Mhm.
composer in residence.
And I mean it's kind of like, I mean, yeah, if you get the job, it's great for you. Um, and I, myself, I very much, envision myself as a concert music composer. I'd kind of like to do a movie or at least a short film at some point. I think that would be a fun thing to do. Um,
I feel the same thing about video game. In
yeah,
fact, video
and
game composition is my
mhm,
backup career.
yeah, and if at some point I were to get more into games, then I may think about doing a game score at some point as well.
Yeah.
I like we've talked about right now, as somebody who's not really a gamer, nobody's gonna hire me to score their game.
Oh yeah, no, yeah.
You know, so
I've
but
seen you play a video game. It's pathetic.
we sometimes play Smash and invite people over to play
I used to
Super
play in
Smash
Halo
Brothers.
too, and I
And
just stopped that.
oh
I
yes,
stopped that.
you finally Zach never
It
asked me to
wasn't
play
fun.
Halo anymore because I suck.
I literally can just like sit there in front of him. He sprays his bullets everywhere around me. Then I take one shot and he's gone. Like, I would have to get.
Spray and pray.
You don't do the pray though. Like that's the part you're missing. You spray, but then you forget to pray. Like, come on, man. But no. So I think the rise of the video game composer. I think as a career path, it is quite good if you can get it, as you mentioned.
Mhm.
I think that
I
the
mean,
only thing that is dangerous about it is can you be taken seriously afterwards? Like Martin O'Donnell, for instance,
mhm.
composer of the Halo series. I mean, everybody knows Martin O'Donnell. Um, would people take his concert music seriously? Because I've actually got a piece that he's working on,
Uh-huh.
sitting around here somewhere. I've got it somewhere. It's called the Golem or something. But
Right.
I've got it lying around, and he's farming out the parts. I already recorded my part and I sent it in, and he's written a piece called like the Golem Choir or whatever, to where like as many people as possible record themselves singing this part and send it to them. And
Hmm.
he just sits there and compiles it, and
Right.
that's the piece. And I think that's really neat.
Yeah, that's
I
a cool
take that
idea.
as pretty serious. But would our institution, would the University of Oklahoma administration take that
And
serious,
I
knowing,
think
oh, he's Martin O'Donnell?
that's a remaining problem in the perception of game and even film composition,
I think
where
film composers have kind of moved past
where
that, though, because
they
people accept that John Williams has a remarkable American symphony and that he has a beastly tuba concerto.
they are and I think, I mean, someone like John Williams, it's John Williams, so people respect that name. But
When
do
I
you
think people should respect Martin O'Donnell just as much.
do you know, I mean, do you know of a lot of film composers besides John Williams who have gotten a wide acceptance for their concert music? I can't really think of anyone besides him.
Korngold.
Korngold would be the other one.
But
And
he
his
kind of did them in parallel. He
well,
didn't.
and
Yeah.
Korngold's violin concerto, by the way, we were just talking about this in a class, and I've noticed this in one of our violin colleagues, Erica Burns, who I was in a class with, is talking about how everybody is playing the Korngold violin concerto now. It seems like wherever you look, there's the Korngold violin concerto.
I'm not sure what's responsible for that,
I'm not
but
either, because
it's
it's
weird.
a nice piece. I don't think it's a great piece, but it is a nice piece. You
Yeah.
know, I do think I know I you know I'd rather hear, the Britain personally,
You're
and I
biased.
think the Britain's making, has been gaining in popularity as well. But I mean, to me, when I think of great 20th century violin concertos, I think of the Britain and I think of the Barber and the there's a lot of them.
Right,
The
but
Berg, Britain, Barber, and
right.
Berg, the
Well,
trio.
I mean, in the end, though, I mean,
Hmm.
like for instance, like let's take me for example.
Hmm.
So I proved myself as a concert composer.
Yeah.
I proved myself as an academic and an academic composer.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, if I were to escape over to video games for a decade and come
Hmm.
back, would people still take me seriously?
And I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, and that's from someone that knows my music, knows me,
Hmm.
knows I do a good job, and
I mean,
I know my and this is assuming that he is the administrator of this theoretical institution, because
yeah.
he would have known me.
I
He
mean,
knows that I went off and did video games, but at that point, have I become a video game
like
composer?
I would take you seriously as somebody who knows your music and then knows you can. I mean, you can write,
Well, yes,
but
but would you, I guess, open yourself up to your colleagues, I guess, criticism for that?
I mean, I would, because I don't care what people think of me. But I don't think, but not everybody's me, and I don't, and I'm not
You need to
sure,
work on that if you want to succeed.
and I'm not sure. I really don't care,
Good luck.
and I'm not sure that going in after going into game composition, you would find widespread acceptance in the more academic world, and I don't think that's a good thing, really. And as I said, I think as video games become more accepted as an art form, which I think they are, I think that will find a little more acceptance from the academic world of game and film composers. And like I
Right.
said, we've people I think higher of film composers now. I think in kind of the academic or concert music world than probably they did 50 years ago.
Right. Well,
Um,
I'll put it this way, with kind of the rapid growth of video
yeah.
games and video game composers,
Hmm.
um, do you think that they're going to catch up to that soon? Or have they caught up to? I actually think, artistically speaking, I think some have surpassed.
Hmm.
I mean,
And I don't really, I mean, like I said, I'm not a gamer. I don't have a lot of firsthand experience. Sure. So
no.
you'd be more the person to
I
go to
personally, as
on this
someone
matter.
who I'm very much a video game
Hmm.
person, I'm also kind of a film connoisseur. I love film. I love enjoying good movies. Um, I think actually in some cases video games have surpassed movies.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that's a fairly weighted and honest opinion.
Hmm.
Um, that's just something I think that they've caught up and in some cases surpassed because I mean I think back to some of the most iconic moments in video games I love, and the music is for me
Hmm.
is much more memorable than for me. This might sound blasphemous, not for people that know me, but it's more memorable for me than some moments from Star Wars
Star Wars. Yeah, I mean,
because the music and
hmm,
John Williams did a phenomenal job. I mean, there
hmm,
are some moments that you can't unsee with the music,
hmm,
but I think that some video games have done better.
hmm.
I mean, like for instance, I mean, it takes a special person to, because I mean, running down a mountain into a jeep that you're then driving to a ship as things are exploding around you
Yeah,
is already pretty exciting, right?
yeah.
What if I told you that it was 3 times more exciting with the soundtrack they added?
Well, I'm sure it
Yeah,
is just like a movie, you know.
yeah,
I mean,
exactly. I mean,
yeah.
and that's something that itself proves. I mean, yeah, you can have exciting scene, but it becomes times 10 once you
Hmm.
add a good soundtrack. And I think that I mean, I don't know. I feel like there's more of those moments for me in video games than in film,
Hmm.
and I actually haven't thought about that until now, but that's kind of jarring,
Hmm.
given how long film has been around
Yeah.
and how much we revere the film
Well,
composers.
and I think there's in I'm not sure how it is in video game music right now, but a lot of film and film music has gotten kind of assembly line-ish. Not the best of it. I mean, I don't think the music of Williams or Desplat or what's the guy who's Michael Giacchino or someone like that. I think that's all very well crafted. But you watch a lot of like action movies and stuff, and the scores just kind of there, you
Yeah.
know, and the plot's just kind of there too.
Well,
And
but you can
and
have
yeah,
quote just an action movie and it have a
hmm,
brilliant score.
right. But there are also movies that do have great scores. I feel that that like a lot of things in Hollywood, there's sometimes the music becomes a little assembly liney. And I'm not sure how that is in the video game world.
There are
Um, yeah,
some things, but it's mostly in kind of like the B titles. So,
yeah,
like for instance,
hmm,
there are some tropes in like MOBAs, mobile games, like
hmm,
cell phone games,
yeah,
basically. There are some tropes in there. There's a
right.
couple of tropes in larger titles, but
Well, there are always tropes, but it's a matter of how
well,
you
yeah. But I'm
use it.
trying to
Yeah.
think like
Hmm.
if there's anything that bad in there.
Hmm.
And once you get to, well, I'll say true video, well, say true video games, and things like things that aren't cell phone games or Candy Crush or I'm sorry, League of
I
Legends is
do see
not a
your point.
video
I
game.
don't really think of your cell phone game in the same category as like WoW or Halo or
Yeah,
Overwatch or
but
whatever.
yeah, I mean, so that stuff. I mean, I don't know. It's just yeah, I'm thinking of kind of the big video games, and honestly, yeah, there are tropes, but there's no, I'd say, assembly line
Yeah.
scores,
Hmm.
and I think that that's interesting. So
Whereas I think in movies you can definitely find Hollywood movies where the music is just anyone could have written it.
now
Um.
that being said, I'd say the only kind of assembly line thing, but really it's not. It's more iterative than anything. But whenever you have repeating titles within a series, so like
Uh huh.
World of Warcraft followed by the first expansion, second expansion, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, the main theme is the same,
Well,
but
yeah,
it's
it's the main
different.
theme.
But all the themes have the very famous Warcraft 7-4
Yeah.
march that
Hmm.
is just very iconic. Bum, 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 bum. I mean, it's just, you hear
Hmm.
that, and if you've ever played the game, you instantly think, oh, I'm in Azeroth.
Yeah.
Or Outland, wherever planning
Hmm.
around these days. But anyways, so yeah, I think that video game composition it's definitely on the rise, and I think it's still rising. I don't think it's plateaued at all because I think that honestly, most of the I guess the cynicism against video games is starting
Hmm.
to die off. I mean, there's still some
Hmm.
people producing studies of kids who did all these school shootings played lots of video
Well,
games. It's like
they're not producing studies. They're making a claim that's
they're
been
making
debunked by
claims.
studies.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
because
I
studies
mean,
show that video games from what I've read, have like really no observable effect on whether people are violent or not.
Well, honestly, for me, they've had nothing but positive effects.
I find a lot of times that participating in some form of art that expresses some kind of negative emotion it doesn't make me
There's
more
nothing negative
mad.
about playing
It
Minecraft.
makes well, I'm talking about like a first person shooter or something like that.
Oh,
And I don't play a lot of video, but participating in any kind of art that expresses more negative emotions, I find it cathartic. That if I'm really if I'm angry and I go in my room and I listen to some metal, then that's it's catharsis, as well as Aristotle would define it. It purges that
yeah, it just
negative
gets it
emotion.
out of you.
It gets it out of you, and I think games can be the same way. It's like you might have a rough day at work. You go home and shoot a bunch of people in Halo to blow off steam. Yeah, but
Yeah,
um, but I
I
don't.
do that a lot.
Yeah, and I think it's probably true that for someone with a certain kind of personality and a certain kind of upbringing, it's possible that playing games like that could desensitize you to violence. I'm not going to say that's impossible, but
Now, I will say there.
mhm,
This is a. I'll tell you that later. That's on something
yeah,
for this show. But
but yeah,
anyways, we do
but
need to
it's
wrap
yeah,
this up. I
mhm,
think.
yeah.
It's been about an hour. We've gassed on for long enough. Let us know, what do you think about video and composition. Is it something you respect? Do you think it's still on the rise? Do you disagree with us? Do you think video games and their music
Mhm.
are worth a damn? Let us
Mhm.
know. I think they're worth a damn.
Yeah, tell us why you hate us.
There we go.
Your hate mail,
Yeah,
yes. And
desensitize yourself to your hate.
yes.
Ah.
Ha ha ha
All
ha.
right. Anyways. All right. Peace
See you
out.
later.